Hello, my name is Duncan Price. I'm a member of Atlas. We're a group of cavers that dig every Wednesday night and sometimes at weekends as well, in various places to discover a new cave underneath Mendip. I'm sitting here now at the entrance to Fernhill Cave, which was reopened recently by Atlas, and this film is about the story of the reopening of that cave, which was originally discovered in 1961 and lost for over 40 years to cavers. About 2 years ago, Alan Gray, using photographs from the archive at the Wells Museum, started a project to relocate Fernhill and dig it open again.
Here we are in Fairy Cave Quarry, and before it was excavated away, there was only one known cave in here, Fairy Cave. Excavation in the quarry revealed many more interesting caves. One of the digs that the Atlas team was involved in, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, just before I joined, was trying to link Fairy Cave with Fernhill Cave. But they came across a massive boulder choke, attacked it in several places, but everywhere was absolutely horrendous, and the last dig ended up in just a blank wall. So unfortunately, that attempt to find Fernhill had to be abandoned, and then the team went across to Bausch Cave to dig there. We've been digging there on and off for about 3 years, with minor success and an awful lot of spoil removed. The quarry was first excavated in the 1920s, but it didn't become a commercial operation until about 1947. And when they were quarrying, they broke into several caves, in fact several large caves. Bausch Cave, Withy Hill Cave, and Shatter Cave. In 1960, they found a cave called Fernhill, and unfortunately, in 1965, they wanted to develop this part of the quarry you can see behind me. So they bulldozed the majority of topsoil off the top, and an awful lot fell on Fernhill Cave. So from 1965 the cave was blocked up, and then they said the cave had the largest curtain in the country. So Atlas got very interested in this and decided to have a look. This dig is quite unusual, since in normal cave digs you are digging either following a draft or on just a hunch. But in this case, we had a survey and even photographs of what would be there.
Fernhill was discovered in 1960 by Jack Wadden, and he explored it and it was surveyed, and then the enthusiasm moved away from Fernhill to Bausch Cave, which is located about 100 yards further away in the quarry. And then one of the Atlas diggers was in Wells Museum having a look at some old photographs, and she came across some photographs of the old entrance to Fernhill. I went down, had a look, took a copy, and we got quite excited about this because in the far left-hand corner of the photograph was a cross, two cross planks. And the title of the photograph was the location of Fernhill. So we brought this photograph along and thought, well, only 10-foot depth of digging and we'll be in. Anyway, we pulled out some more very old photographs of the cave and realised that wasn't so. It was further below the spoil heap. And we located 3 rocks on the old photograph that were still present on the existing quarry face, and were able to reasonably accurately pinpoint the location of the cave. Unfortunately, it was below 32 feet of infill. But we weren't daunted, and back in April 2008, there was a slew digger and a big bulldozer, and they worked away for 5 days, scooping away a large depression in the middle of this giant spoil heap. And luckily, on the 4th day, we actually found the top of the open rift, exactly the same as was shown in the old photographs. We put pipes in, and we're very lucky because that night there was a giant rainstorm and a lot of the spoil from above had been washed surrounding the pipes. So if we hadn't put the pipes in that day, it would have been refilled the hole we dug out with the diggers. So from April, we started digging out the infill from the rift. We thought it would be quite quick, but as is always with cave digging, it took quite a bit longer than we thought.
It was full of stars. I've got this theory that this shaft isn't natural.
I'm going to give one to... It's a bit like shark fishing, this. Just sitting, sort of standing there for ages and then just putting the dead weight.
Go on, it's a heavy one. Put your back into it.
The Atlas digging team is a very friendly digging team. It must be so to have dug together for so many years. Occasionally people drop in and then come back, and we're constantly seeing new faces, some only for a very short time. It's a very sociable event, although it's hard work, and of course the thing that lures us on is finding new caves. We dig in here probably for 2.5, 3 hours, and it's quite a lot of hard work compressed into a very short space of time. But our goal at the end of the evening is to visit the Wagon and Horses. And Gonzo, after about 2 hours digging down here, keeps telling us that Adelson's, a local cider, is driving him onwards.
In December 2008, we made our first breakthrough into South Passage. A narrow crawl leads to a small chamber 1.5 meters high, and a very tight squeeze terminates in a small chamber. Total length of passage is 32 meters. This discovery verified that the original survey was correct and that the main chamber lies another 5 meters along the rift.
We were chatting at the time.
Well, we were digging in here for a year, and it was a case of great disappointments because we make a little bit of progress down, probably dig out 10 feet of spoil and earth from the rift. Quite easy digging really, because it was only small little stones and mud. And then the next week we come back in and there'd been a collapse. And this went on for weeks and weeks, digging for a couple of weeks and another collapse. So in the end, Richie came up with a major shoring exercise. So as we went down, we had to stabilise all the way down.
Too short.
Tack. Take up.
No, I'm sure there's a lot more to find in Fairy Cave Quarry, and this is a cave that was open for a very few years only. It was open from 1960, probably no more than 2 or 3 years. I think they started filling it in about 1963, and it was completely buried by 1965. So not only should it be quite a well preserved, small, well decorated fairy cave, quarry cave, but there may well be leads down here that were never pushed at the time. So shortly after they found Fernhill, on the other side of the quarry, Balch Cave was intercepted. Much bigger, much more interesting, and all the interest in Fernhill went across to the other side of the quarry, and Balch was then the main focus of attention for the next 4 or 5 years. So Fernhill is largely a forgotten cave, really. Not only is it lost, but very few people can remember much about what was down here, whether there were good pushing leads, whether there were dig sites. So the aim really is to get back into the cave and then see whether there's the potential for finding perhaps a way onwards across the quarry towards St Dunstan's Well, the resurgence.
Is there a high possibility?
High possibility is probably a slight exaggeration, but the survey does show that there are passages going off in that general direction. Now on the survey they just sort of peter out in dotted lines. Now whether that means they're stalled up, choked with mud, blocked with boulders, who knows. But you know, the worst case scenario, we'll have a 400-foot cave, hopefully still well decorated. Best case scenario, you know, we could have a lead which would take us significantly across underneath the quarry floor towards St Dunstan's.
Oh, right.
So worth certainly the investment of a year's effort.
There was talk someone might have taken the curtain away.
Yes, it did have what was regarded at the time as a very impressive curtain formation. Whether by today's Mendip standards it would still be regarded that highly, I don't know, but the photographs certainly show that it was a very fine formation. Now there was talk about trying to cut it out, or cut part of it out, to save it when they knew the cave was going to be infilled by quarry waste. But the logbook entries rather tantalisingly stop at the planning stage. The people who were around at the time don't think they ever got round to doing anything about it. They planned to do it, but the general view is that when they looked at the curtain they concluded that you could never cut it out without completely smashing it to pieces. So, as it's never turned up in any museum, the view is it must be still down here, and it should be far enough to the north that it would be away from any serious quarry blasting.
Were you expecting the cave to be this unstable?
No, I'd hoped that before they backfilled it, I'd hoped they'd either blocked it off with large slabs at the top, or that enough large slabs had dropped down this steep bedding plane to have jammed across, and that we'd find quite significant voids underneath. But all the stuff that came in is very small rocks, mud, gravel, so it's virtually filled it up. And of course, further over to the east, you've got the backfilled area from the JCB dig, and that is very loosely packed, and it's continually running in behind us. Hence all this shoring that we've had to construct. A mixture of timber, steel, concrete walls. We've had lots of run-ins, but thanks to the shoring we've had no serious collapses that have put anyone in any danger. It's set us back time to time. Take up. Yeah, some of the timber shoring has come out and been replaced by more permanent steel and concrete shoring. So if and when we get in, we should have a reasonably secure access for the foreseeable future. At some stage in the far distant future there may have to be further engineering down here, but it will certainly be, it'll last, see me out, it'll last one lifetime.
Mud, glorious mud, and nothing quite like it for cooling the blood. So follow me, follow, down to the hollow, where we can wallow in glorious mud.
Maybe we should put the cement in there.
Something cascade. I don't think it will, but...
Let's push it back a bit.
Two spanners there. I think that's the right 19 for the flat. Yeah, there were a couple of stages earlier on in the dig when we were rushing a little bit because it all looked very enticing.
but it didn't really pay off because it meant you got clearing more spoil out than perhaps we needed. So now we're doing all this shoring up and getting it right first time now. So we should need to remove a lot less spoil. That's the intention. I think we can see what might be the main chamber, the roof of the main chamber, possibly just in the distance, tantalising in the distance. The passage, the rift comes down and then shelves horizontally, but disappears beyond where we can see. So it might be.
It's a good possibility.
It is, yeah. So we're hoping it is anyway, because it means that we can see where we're going now. So, which may mean a lot less spoil needs to come out. Oh, good.
Oh, yes, I know, we wouldn't do that.
Well, I think that is the main chamber, which was
So you're not going to
quite an impressive size, about 60 feet long. The curtain is
I thought we'd go into that bit.
way to the north in a separate passage called Curtain Passage. So that should be well away from any quarry blast damage.
On first entering Curtain Passage, we were elated. The cavers in the 1960s had not tried to remove the large curtain. There was some minor damage, with about half a metre of the tip of the curtain missing, with the shards on the floor. This was caused by quarry blasting.
Wow! That is fantastic.
All right.
The excavator phase, there were 69 digging sessions, 982 man-woman hours of work, hauling 1,881 skip loads of spoil to the surface, weighing approximately 32 tons. We're in Curtain Passage in Fernhill Cave, and of course when you discover a new cave you have to survey it. So you can show other people what you found and possibly find new ways on. 40 feet below us is another cave that was buried by quarrying that was called Duck's Pot.
and that was also surveyed in the 1960s. And at the far end of Duck's Pot was a 40-foot high avon, which comes up almost directly underneath the main chamber of Fernhill Cave. And so that's another thing we'll be looking for. But there's quite an impossible rift in here that will need an awful lot of digging and a lot of work. So we'll see.
Well, for anywhere, really. Yeah, but I think
if we actually would again.